Quick update today as we head into the holiday here. You can see we did get that pretty dramatic breakdown that we thought that we might, and now you can see a little bit of a bounce into the end of the session, choppy action, but at this point, this does look quite terrible. Let's look at some of these charts as we head into the Thanksgiving holiday. Do me a quick favor and like and subscribe and watch the video till the end to help out the channel, and let's get started. Looking at fear and greed, we were actually flat here, 64 to a 64, still extreme greed on momentum. Strength still bouncing, neutralized here. Breadth also still bouncing, still in fear though. Put call ratio still extreme greed. We did see it tick up just slightly to 0.64, still very, very low though. Volatility hovering at those interesting levels we talked about, and bonds still showing extreme greed across the board. Moving over to the economic calendar, core PCE prices a little bit lower than expectations. That's what you wanted to see. GDP numbers still good there. 2.8%, 1.9% for the price index, a little bit higher there, but overall still good. Initial jobless claims better than expectations as well. Pretty good across the board here. You can see PCE price index also in line with expectations, relatively low there. Pending home sales a little bit better. Overall good numbers here for the Wednesday. And then don't forget, obviously Thanksgiving, markets are closed, and then a shortened trading session here on the Friday. Generally you have low volume on those kinds of days, and there's really nothing on the calendar except for Chicago PMI. Not expecting much out of that. Moving over to Max Pain for the Friday session, 590 stepped up a little bit. 598 is the current price, so we saw a little bit of a bullish step there towards that 590 from 585, but still bearish on the Max Pain numbers here for the end of the week and then into next week. Again, this has been a little choppy, but still looks bearish here for me. And then moving over to the charts here, we'll take a quick look. Not a whole lot of volatility, really no changes to the thesis here on the SPY charts. You can see we hit the current level, 599.64, pulled back from there after closing above it yesterday. Back below the level, that's going to be a resistance. If it rejects from that 21 EMA on the hourly, that's going to be bearish. And obviously on the daily chart, this still looks like a double top. No change to that thesis from yesterday. We thought we might get a continuation here, but we ended up getting flat price action, slightly bearish, step towards bearish momentum. Everything looks a little bit weak there. And then looking at that hourly chart, you can see we're back into this range. We were right above it, pulled back, retested, pulled back. So we're still in this trading range here, still holding a potential bear flag type setup after the move down, but we're back into these previous highs here, waiting to see if we get that double top. Kind of looks like a left shoulder head, right shoulder potentially on the hourly chart as well. So a couple of things to look for, but minimal movement here today. Moving over to the NASDAQ here, you can see very similar thesis, broke down from this structure. On the daily chart, it held it here, tested all those levels, ended up bouncing into the end of the session. Momentum stepping to bearish, RSI stepping to bearish. We talked about that retest of the SMA, ended up breaking down from that level. So that is a bearish indicator. Definitely does not look good. You can see it here on the hourly chart. And from the thumbnail, you can see we broke down from this bear flag setup. We've now broken down, looking for the retest of that level in the 508 area, touch that level, and then I would expect a rejection from there. So short term, slightly bullish. You can see the volume was slightly bullish, looking for the retest. And then if it rejects from there, that is going to be a very bearish setup, and I would expect a lot more downside from there. Moving over to the Russell and the Dow, you can see the Russell was very slightly positive, holding up much better than everything else, right in that 241.50 area. Did fall during the session back down to 240.95, slightly below my level, but seems to be holding up. Momentum probably going to fall here into the end of the week, but for now it's holding up. Doesn't look super great. Kind of looks like an island setting up. And then looking at the Dow, gapped up into these key resistance areas, probably going to fall. Touched that level, rejected from there. Momentum didn't step quite yet, but we hit overbought conditions. Everything looks a little bit extended. Moving over to the Mag 7, also falling today, 0.88. Almost touched those levels. Momentum back to bearish, RSI rejecting. I think this is going to roll over here as a high, lower high setup. Similar to what we saw on the NASDAQ, everything looks like it's getting ready to fall a little bit more here into the medium term, at least to that 55 EMA, which is currently sitting at 283.35. From current levels, that's about a 4% down move. That's pretty dramatic, much worse than we've seen over the past couple days. So definitely something to watch for once these structures start to go. I think this is going to accelerate. Like I said, very extended. If we did get a true mean reversion back down to the 200, that's about 12% lower. Moving over to Apple and Microsoft, both of those getting inside candles off of their big up days the previous day. So not what you would have wanted to see for a continuation style move. Apple still looks okay, rallying just a little bit after hours. Still might get a touch of that 237.23 level right towards those all-time highs. Momentum is still very, very strong. So that one looks okay, but looking at Microsoft, I still think this is going to break to the downside. It's been holding up really, really well. The structure is kind of broken here now, but overall, I think this is still going to go to the downside. Could not get close to that 429.88 area after having the very powerful day yesterday. Inside candle, usually a bearish setup. Moving over to Tesla and NVIDIA. Tesla broke the level, 336.67, down 1.5% or so. Momentum bearish, RSI bearish. Still looking for this to retest at least the 21, down at 310.79. And then looking at NVIDIA here, 1.15% to the downside. Hit the 55 like we thought it was going to at 133. Just missed my level there, 130.35. The low of day was 131.80. So missed it by about $1.50. My guess is that this continues to go. Either way, this is starting to look like a head and shoulders pattern. So you got a left shoulder, head, right shoulder potentially forming. Want to see it retest that 21, catch a slight bounce into that zone. If it rejects from there, that's going to be absolutely catastrophic. And this has been dragging down markets, and I do think that there's a fair amount of room at least to that 144, which is about another 10% move. We've seen moves like that where you consolidate lower high, break to that 144. That was 20%, a little over 20% lower. I think we could absolutely see a move like that into that 144 EMA at the very least. So looks like NVIDIA is pulling down markets. Moving over to Amazon and Alphabet, both of these having a okay day. Amazon was down 1%, pretty much in line with markets, breaking down from that SMA on the RSI. Google was very slightly positive, but key resistance 170.95. Wicked it once again, still could not get above it. Momentum still swinging to the bull side, but seems to be fading at this level. Makes sense that it would reject from there. That is a key level. You can see it's been important through this last consolidation all the way back here, honestly, April of 24 to current time. Now we're testing that level once again. That seems to be holding as resistance, which would give you a potential sell from here down into that 166 area. Moving over to staples and discretionaries. Staples continues to be a rocket ship. Broke out here, continues to run. Everything looks good there. Still looking for a test of the 83.43 level. Realistically could go up to the 84.53 level, but we hit this trend now, acting as some resistance. Maybe it fades out there, but for now still looks good. And then looking at discretionaries, down day there as well, about 0.5%. Still above the trend line, momentum fading, RSI fading, probably going to break down. Moving over to breadth, the only thing that's really been holding up markets, in my opinion, is market breadth. Even with the down day today, market breadth continues to hold in there pretty well. And that was another iteration of that. So it was flat yesterday, flat today, still waiting to see if we get some clear direction from here. You can see high, higher high on both of these. So market breadth hanging in there, probably why we see the Russell continuing to do fairly well, but it's not giving us any clear direction quite yet. Still looks extended. Even with the higher high setup, this is a higher high, and this is probably where it's going to turn. But like I said, we haven't seen any direction quite yet. Moving over to the dollar finally showing a little bit more weakness. We said it was going to go bearish, and sure enough it did. Broke through the level, fell all day, 0.8% down to that 21 area. Still going to touch it in my opinion, 105.659, and then my level 105.5. Probably going to touch that level. Left shoulder, head, right shoulder maybe setting up. See how it plays out. Right now this looks a little bit bearish, definitely extended. This could hold up markets a little bit. Hasn't really done it quite yet, but interesting to see the dollar and the NASDAQ moving in the same direction still. Again, this still looks a little bit more bearish, and I think it's probably got some more bearish to go. Moving over to bonds, JNK and TLT both having good days. Hopefully you guys bought some bonds. We've been talking about how these are good medium-term investments. Not super great trading vehicles. They can be really choppy, and usually they don't move a whole lot, but in terms of medium-term investments, I do think this is probably going to go well here. We're back above the 92.82 level. Gap to it, doji, momentum bullish, RSI bullish. See if this kind of rocket ships up. Maybe we hit some resistance in here, higher low setup, and then continue on. Either way, both of these look good. J&K probably headed back up to that 97.69 level. You have a low, higher low setup, holding in here, pushing up. Everything looks good. Just needs to break out of this pattern here and then push to that next one. Overall, bonds look good in my opinion. Moving over to the VIX, you can see the VIX was basically flat, still holding in this key area of support. We talked about it before being an interesting area. Held this zone last time, holding this zone once again, slight bullish day. Momentum not quite going with it yet. RSI not quite going with it quite yet. Need to see it get above the SMA and push. Interesting to see it bouncing in this area though. And based off today's candle, I would expect a little bit more bullishness off of it, which would give you a little bit more bearish bearishness in equities. Moving over to my accounts, I traded pretty poorly, unfortunately, and I didn't want to hold those positions, and then I didn't really participate in the rally back, so I stayed kind of down on the day. Obviously, the IWM did fine, took that position off for a profit. Everything was good there, but the Qs obviously got squeezed out. Not what I would have wanted to see. Otherwise, in terms of positions right now, 504 for the Friday session. I think we might see a little bit more retracement to the upside. And then I did sell that 508 for the Friday. I think we'll probably hit those key levels and then reject from there and then sell off some more. So right now I have a little bit of a kind of a calendar spread type position on right now. So puts for the short term, trying to see if we get a little bounce. Wouldn't want to hold those for very long. And then, like I said, I think we'll see more sells to the downside, holding those calls as a potential move for that. So overall, short term, very, very short term, slight bullish. Medium term, looking a little bit more bearish now after today's session. Let me know down in the comment section what you thought of markets today. How did it change your thesis? How are you positioning for the moves upcoming off of today's session? Otherwise, like and subscribe if you got any value out of today's video. Make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Of course, none of this is financial advice. This is all for entertainment purposes. Have a happy Thanksgiving and good luck in your trading.